Welcome to Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. On this week's program, we talk with Dr. Roger McEowen for the Washburn School of Law with 10 issues of agriculture throughout the court system. Also have features from the Kansas Soybean Commission, Kansas Department of Agriculture, and Kansas Grain Sorghum, along with our weekly update from the Kansas Livestock Association and market information from Pinion.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, Progress powered by Kansas farmers. Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farm and ranch families since 1919, kfb.org. And the Kansas Wheat Commission, lending in the adoption of profitable innovations from wheat, online at kswheat.com.
In agriculture news, the Kansas Grain Sorghum Producers Association and Commission announcing Adam York assuming the role as Kansas Sorghum's new CEO. He brings a strong policy and leadership background to the position with half a decade experience in the sorghum industry. He served as Director of Programs for Kansas Sorghum, also Sustainability Director for the United Sorghum Checkoff Program, and Governmental Affairs Director for the National Sorghum Producers. He also has served in a number of public sector roles. He was a staff manager in the U.S. House of Representatives Hunger Caucus, also a Class 16 associate of the Kansas Agriculture and Rural Leadership Program known as CARL. Well, USDA released its final 2023 crop production numbers and it showed a rise in corn production, a drop in soybeans. 2023 corn production, a record 15.3 billion bushels. That's 12% above 2022. The average yield, a record high, 177.3 bushels per acre, 3.9 bushels above 2022. Now, soybean production reached 4.16 billion bushels, 2% lower than 2022. The average yield, 50.6 bushels per acre. That's 1 bushel above what we saw in 2022. The production drop was due to a 4% fewer harvested acres than the previous year. That's a quick check of ag information. More coming up on the Kansas Ag Report.
The Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com.
And joining us now is Dr. Roger McEowen, who is an ag and tax law specialist at the Washburn School of Law. Happy New Year, Dr. McEowen.
Well, thank you, Ken. Good to be with you.
Okay, as we start 2024, we look back on 2023. Now, typically we go through the top 10 list, but what we're going to attempt here is to go through at least 10 of kind of agriculture in the courtroom and how agriculture went through the judicial system in no particular order, but 10 things, 10 cases that you say are very important for us to pay attention to. Let's just start right off. It seems like taxes is always one of those that is critical. Some constitutionality measures is one of the ones we want to start out with.
Yeah, it's a major case that's before the U.S. Supreme Court right now. I don't know if I would put this as my number one development. Probably not, because we don't have the opinion of the court yet. We had a lower court opinion in 2023 that did uphold the constitutionality of a provision in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017 that allows, in essence, wealth to be taxed without a realization event in the hands of the taxpayer. So it's a complicated set of facts, involves a foreign corporation and an investor in the United States whose stock investment in the company went up. And there's a one-time so-called repatriation tax that was enacted in 2017. And they got a $15,000 tax bill for that increase in the value of their investment, even though they didn't liquidate any of the stock. That is currently before the U.S. Supreme Court. There were arguments in early December of 2023 in that case. That's a big one because we know, particularly in agriculture, we know what Elizabeth Warren has been wanting to do for a number of years, and that is have a wealth tax where there is no realization event. So this is a big one for everybody to watch, in agriculture in particular.
Waters of the U.S., another big issue you and I talked a lot about in 2023.
Yeah, we had the Sackett opinion back in May, late May, which was that Idaho couple. And the U.S. Supreme Court unanimously determined that they did not have a wetland, a jurisdictional wetland under federal law. And they came up with a test that they felt comported with congressional intent back in the 1970s and 80s on the definition of a wetland, and it requires a continuous surface flow, continuous surface connection to a water of the United States. That's a big case, and it's a huge case for agriculture.
Proposition 12 in California is now the law.
Yeah, that's certainly one of the big developments of 23 was the U.S. Supreme Court upholding Prop 12 out in California. And of course, that's the case where the state of California, Proposition 12, allowed California to create a law which just took effect recently, basically saying that you cannot sell pork products, and it also involves some other products, but pork was the big one at issue in the case. You can't sell into the California market unless you can certify that the pork from which the products derived were raised in a fashion that comported with California's desires and their morals, so to speak. And so that eliminated a lot of these small sow crates that the sows would be in for temporarily while they're birthing piglets. And that's the way it's done in the major hog producing parts of the country, particularly Iowa. The kicker is that the impact of the law doesn't have much of an impact in California because they don't raise hogs. They don't have much pork production out there, but yet they consume about 14% of the U.S. market. So it's very important to producers in other states to have access to that market. But the court upheld the law, and so that was a big development in 2023.
Also, SE tax back in tax court.
Yeah, we have a huge case involving self-employment tax, and this is a technique. What's involved here is a technique that we've used in agriculture for a long time to save farmers self-employment tax. And that is we set up various types of entities. And typically what it is a manager managed limited liability company. For the non-managers, we can structure, if we bifurcate the interest, the non-manager interests are not subject to self-employment tax on any distributions that are made by the partnership, the LLC. They still would have to pay SE tax on guaranteed payments. Now, we can do that for farmers. We cannot do that if you're a professional service corporation. At least that's what we think. That's the way the rules work. When we had a tax court case in late 2023, the Sorghum Capital Partners case, which confirmed that we were right on that professional service companies such as hedge funders can't do this. And the tax court, in a full tax court opinion, really put its foot down and said, no, we're going to follow temporary regulations or proposed regulations that the IRS put out in 1997. And the reason this is big, Ken, is because Steve Cohen, the owner of the New York Mets, who also operates a hedge fund, IRS went after him for about $314 million worth of distributions to the partners, to the limited partners in his company. And that's about anywhere from $10 to $15 million of SE tax, and he refused to pay it. And I think the tax court has sent him a message saying, Steve, if you bring your case to us, you're going to lose. So you should look to settle. But we'll see how that comes out. That's an important one to agriculture because we often structure entities to avoid self-employment tax.
Dr. Roger McEowen from the Washburn School of Law is joining us. We're talking about 10 key decisions or things that are working their way through the law process through agriculture. So take a quick break. Back with more in just a moment.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future at kansascorn.com.
Our guest is Dr. Roger McEowen from the Washburn School of Law. He's an ag and tax law specialist. We're talking about things that really big developments when it comes to agriculture going through the legal system. Another big issue is foreign ownership of land. Many states have tried to take things in their own hands.
This is going to be a huge issue in 2024. It was a big issue in 2023. This is definitely going to be in the top five once I get all of these prioritized. But huge issue in Kansas as well as in other states. We've seen Arkansas, the governor there take a strong position. Florida, we actually had a case in Florida in 2023 upholding the law. And so that's the first one out of the box on a major provision there. And early in 2024, we've seen some aggressive moves taken by the state of Missouri. So a number of states, about 15 states in 2023, have taken further action on this issue.
Now, something that is learning more about, at least up here, and that is commercial wind development in Oklahoma. What's going on there?
Well, it was a major decision just before Christmas. So this came down late in 2023, and the wind energy company was told by the 10th Circuit back in, I believe it was 2017, that they needed to get a mineral lease from the tribes on which they had already developed a commercial wind operation. They put towers up. I think there were 84 towers that were put up on several thousand acres of land. And they never did that. And so what we had was the federal court ordering the company to take everything down. It's an illegal operation now. You didn't get your mineral lease, because what the court is saying was that when you're disturbing the soil, you're mining the soil on that tribal land. You have to get a mining lease to mine those minerals. They didn't do it, so the whole thing has to be torn down.
And again, we're talking of different things that's happened this year in agriculture and the legal system. The last one that you and I also talked about this past year, and that is dealing with Missouri River flooding and the impact it had on farmers and the Corps and everybody else.
Right. There was a major opinion by a federal court in 2023, the Idaker Farms case, which said that the Corps of Engineers, as well as the EPA, but primarily the Corps, mismanaged the water levels in the Missouri River when we had flooding a number of years ago by continuing to let water out up in South Dakota, near Yankton, South Dakota, the Gavin's Point Dam up there, and it flooded the river, contributed to the flooding, made it problems worse for farmers on the Iowa side, the Nebraska side, and a few down in Kansas, clear up in the northeast corner of Kansas. And they said that you have to pay for that. That was a taking of those farmers' farms, and the government has to pay for that.
All right. Well, there was a number of other issues. I know you had listed a whole 25 that also in the process of ranking all those. So folks will be able to find that on your blog, I'm assuming, once everything kind of gets settled, because there's also some of these that haven't been settled, still going through the process.
Right. I'll have everything posted in multiple blog articles throughout January. On my blog, which is washburnlaw.edu/Walter. You can access it off the homepage there. I also share those with Ag Manager, which is the Ag Econ website over at K-State, as well as with RFD TV.
All right, Dr. McEowen, as always, appreciate it. We'll talk with you next month.
Thank you, Ken.
Dr. Roger McEowen, Ag and Tax Law Specialist, the Washburn School of Law, has joined us. We will have more coming up in just a moment. Stay with us.
What if U.S. soybean meal were more than a commodity? If seed companies and the soybean checkoff built a better variety? That future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is investing in the compositional quality of soybeans, including meal. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the soybean checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Results of the 2023 yield contest are in. Despite environmental challenges testing farmers throughout the crop season, the Kansas Soybean Yield Contest had a strong showing in entries. The most recent iteration of the contest attracted several first-time entrants and brought back many familiar participants to make fierce competition for the top honors. Bringing home the prize for having the highest dryland yield is Batchelder Farms of Highland with 101.3 bushel soybeans. The Zetabo X03922 Enlist soybeans were entered in the North-Northeast Conventional Till Division. Claiming the top irrigated yield honor is Brett Froese of Inman with an entry of no-till Pioneer 42A84 Enlist soybeans yielding 104.2 bushels per acre. Other divisional yield contest winners are as follows. After Batchelder Farms in the North-Northeast Conventional Till Dryland category is Gary Dively, Severance, 91.4 bushels per acre, and Jesse Clark Robinson, 90.8 bushels per acre. In the North-Northeast No-Till Dryland category, first place, Johnson Ag Incorporated, Bendina, 88 bushels per acre. Second place, Paul C. Johnson, Bendina, 85.1 bushels per acre. Third place, Alex Knoll, Winchester, 80.4 bushels per acre. In the Northeast No-Till Dryland category, first place, Varying Land and Pork, Marysville, 90.7 bushels per acre. Second place, Jared Locke, Hiawatha, 87 bushels per acre. Third place, Derek Gigstad, Valley Falls, 82.8 bushels per acre. In the North Central Conventional Till Dryland Division, first place, Rod Stewart, Washington, 62.8 bushels per acre. In the North Central No-Till Dryland Division, first place, Ryan Stewart, Washington, 62.4 bushels per acre. In the East Central No-Till Dryland category, first place, Robert Litch, Melbourne, 59.6 bushels per acre. In the Southeast Conventional Till Dryland category, first place, Roger Drager, Galena, 79.5 bushels per acre. Second place, Chris Payne, Buffalo, 68.6 bushels per acre. Third place, Luke Beller, Mound Valley, 65.1 bushels per acre. In the Southeast No-Till Dryland category, first place, Dalton Drager, Galena, 73.4 bushels per acre. Second place, Bradley and Emily McVeigh, Fredonia, 69 bushels per acre. Third place, Jared Nash, Parsons, 51.9 bushels per acre. In the South Central No-Till Dryland Division, first place, Aaron Pauley of Viola, 69.5 bushels per acre. Second place, Bruce Seiler, Colwich, 42.1 bushels per acre. Following Brett Froese in the statewide No-Till Irrigated Division is George Ince, Inman, 94.4 bushels per acre, and Minold Farms, Hiawatha, 92.3 bushels per acre. In the statewide Conventional Till Irrigated Division, first place, Doug Mills, Hugoton, 102.2 bushels per acre. Second place, Chad Penner, Enman, 100.2 bushels per acre. Third place, Sam Miller, Haven, 94.8 bushels per acre. For full contest results, please visit www.kansassoybeans.org/contests.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil.
The Kansas legislative session is now underway as the state's senators and representatives are convening in committees and as large bodies to hear bills and debate issues that affect the lives of Kansans. This is a busy season for the Kansas Department of Agriculture as we monitor any legislation that would have an impact on farmers, ranchers, or agribusinesses in Kansas. We are often asked to provide background information or testimony on bills that relate to conservation, water, animal health, or other topics of great importance to Kansans. At the start of the legislative session, Secretary of Agriculture Mike Beam meets with the ag committees of both chambers to provide an annual State of Agriculture report, an update on the ag industry, along with the work that KDA has been involved in throughout the past year. In addition, KDA frequently proposes legislation that amends statutes which govern the agriculture industry, so that the state law is current and comprehensible for citizens who are affected by those laws. Often this involves making statutory changes to ensure consistency, reflect current practices, clarify terms and authorities, and provide flexibility where appropriate. Sometimes it also involves changes to fee structures to allow the agency to fund the work of the divisions and programs through user fees. This year we'll be talking about pesticide applicator licensing, the Stream Obstruction Act, and the Kansas Pet Animal Act, among other topics. If you're interested in following along with the 2024 Kansas legislative session, go to kslegislature.org, where you'll find information about legislators, committees, bills, and much more. Most of the committee hearings and meetings are streamed live there and on the legislature's YouTube channel. And please reach out to us at the Kansas Department of Agriculture if you have concerns or questions about any of the ag-related issues that arise this year.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Happy New Year from Kansas Grain Sorghum. I'm Maddie Meyer, here to provide you with the latest Kansas Grain Sorghum update. While we are always celebrating the leadership and hard work of our growers, I wanted to take the time to congratulate a few individuals for their dedication and time they served with the United Sorghum Checkoff Board of Directors. Shane Supis of Scott City has just completed his tenure and was recognized for his role representing Kansas at the annual national board meetings last month in Lubbock. Congratulations are in order for him. I'd also like to recognize our Kansas board members, Kendall Hudson of Little River and Kim Baldwin of Inman, for being named chairman and treasurer respectively of the United Sorghum Checkoff Board. David Shem of Sharon Springs was also sworn in as board member, replacing Shane in the Kansas seat. We can't wait to see what they accomplish this year. The National Sorghum Yield Contest results have also been announced. Congratulations to the Bibb and Niswonger Partnership of Comanche, Kansas, for winning the Irrigated West Division with a winning yield of 218.64 bushels an acre. Kansas was also well represented across the other divisions of Dryland Tillage West and Dryland No-Till West. Finally, I'd like to give a reminder that registration for the Kansas Commodity Classic is still open. This year's event will be held Friday, January 26th at the Salina Hilton Garden Inn. If you're looking for a one-stop shop that provides updates and outlooks on markets, weather, and insight from farmer leaders, then Kansas Commodity Classic will be an event you don't want to miss. For updates and more information, be sure to follow the Kansas Commodity Classic Facebook page and website at kansascommodityclassic.com. We look forward to seeing you all there.
USDA has appointed 26 members to serve on the Cattleman's Beef Promotion and Research Board. 2 of those members are from Kansas and will each serve a 3-year term beginning at the cattle industry summer business meeting this July. Marissa Claystuber is from Garden City and works alongside her family on their cattle feeding and commercial cow-calf operation. Jacqueline Leffler and her family run a cattle and farming operation near Americus. Leffler also owns a direct-to-consumer beef marketing business. Other Kansans currently serving on the board include Jack Geiger of Robinson, Larry Kindig from Osborne, Amy Langvart of Alta Vista, Evan Lesser from Palco, Phil Perry of Oskaloosa, and Trista Brown Priest from Satana. Perry and Priest will end their term at the Cattle Industry Convention to be held later this month in Orlando, Florida. The Cattleman's Beef Board is authorized by the Beef Promotion and Research Act of 1985 and is composed of 101 members who must be beef producers or importers of beef and beef products nominated by certified producer organizations, of which the Kansas Livestock Association is one. The group oversees collection of the dollar per head checkoff and is responsible for approving the annual budget for national checkoff funded programs.
More farmers and ranchers than ever have chosen to be BQA certified.
This Cold weather across the U.S. over the past 2 weeks, alongside a bearish USDA report on Friday, has most of the trade wanting to hide underneath the warm blankets. Specifically, the USDA updated U.S. corn and soybean production estimates, updated U.S. and world supply and demand balance sheets, and gave us our first look at planted acres for winter wheat in the United States. Let's get into the numbers. U.S. corn supplies rose versus previous estimates. Forecasted yield showed 177.3, a raise of 2.4 bushels from the December report. After changes of imports, total production, and feed usage, this left an ending stocks number of 2.1 billion bushels. This rose nearly 800 million from this time last year, which brings the U.S. total stocks and usage ratio up to 15%, a number last seen in 2018 as we dipped under 10% during the COVID food concern and drought buying spree of 2020-2021. U.S. soybean supplies also rose, but by a smaller percentage. Yield penciled in at 50.6 bushel per acre, up from 49.9 on the last report. A more neutral to slight raise in total ending stocks for beans ended with 280 million bushels, or 6.7 stocks to use. This carryout is similar to our position this time last year, but with questions more focused on what really will come out of South American bean harvests. Overall, a bearish corn and more neutral bean report. Initial reactions were harshly sold off in both commodities, with beans able to stabilize and retreat from recent lows to a more modest close, down 12 cents on the day. Corn, on the other hand, plummeted post-report and never looked back, ending the day down 10 cents per bushel. Whether we debate the numbers or not, they are in fact the numbers the trade will factor on all balance sheets going forward until the March prospective plantings report, and we are subject to a bearish sold-off market in corn and soybeans, constantly relying on supply concerns as global prices are still lower than what the U.S. can offer on near all main commodities. U.S. all wheat planted acres rose with a small decline in HRW acres. Better conditions and spring weather outlook offset those lower acres and look for a higher production in those areas. But coming out of winter, both the U.S. and EU will determine where we are headed on wheat. Global carryout on wheat is lower than this time last year, as we saw cheaper, ample supplies of wheat leave the Black Sea areas despite the conflict amongst Russia and Ukraine. When it comes to following the day-to-day moves in an ever-changing agricultural markets, we at Pinion Risk Management look to be a trusted source of information for our clients, along with being a guiding hand on decision-making and reasoning towards a market plan. To learn more about our approach at Pinion Risk Management, please give us a call at 888-452-8751. I'm Tanner Burning with Pinion, and thank you for your time.
That's our program this week. Be social with us online, kansasagreport.net, or our social media channels. I'm Ken Rogers. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on the Kansas Ag Report.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.